Welcome back. You're tuned into the Patriot podcast.
The podcast of Sandy Creek, where we talk about what's going on and what people actually care about.
I'm Aliyah.
And I'm Daniela, and shout out to Luca for editing like always and making sure we sound good.
So we're in the month of March now, and the energy is already different.
Yeah, like everything is going on this month with different school events, spring coming, and holidays.
And one thing that's happening all month we wanted to focus on today is Women's History Month. But we're not going to talk about it in a boring way.
Yeah, not just explaining only the definition, more like actually talking through the impact, the stories, and the things people don't always think about.
Because when you really start connecting everything, it's way bigger than just names on a list.
Exactly. So we're going to get into all of that, past, present, and even stuff that still affects things today.
So yeah, let's get into it. What's interesting is that it didn't even start as a full month at first. It was only a week.
Yep, and back in 1980, it was Women's History Week, and it was created to bring attention to how much women's contributions were being left out.
And it's kind of crazy because it wasn't like women weren't doing important things. It was just they weren't being recognized in the same way.
Exactly, so over time, people pushed for more visibility, and by 1987, it officially became a full month.
And now it's one of those things where it's everywhere in March, but the real reason behind it is more deeper than people think.
Also, if you're wondering why March out of all the months, well, it wasn't random. It connects to International Women's Day on March 8th.
Yep, which actually started way back in the early 1900s with women protesting for better working conditions and fighting for rights.
So from the start, this wasn't just for celebration. It was about action and change.
And the same idea still carries into now, especially with this year's theme.
The 2026 theme is Leading the Change, Women Shaping a Sustainable Future,
which is basically highlighting women who are making an impact right now, like in the environment, business, communities, all of it.
And I like that it's not just focused on the past, it's also about what's happening currently.
Yep, because it makes it feel more relevant, not just something you learn and move on from. When you really look at history, a lot of progress for women came from having to fight for basic rights.
Yeah, like voting, equal pay, education opportunities, none of that was handed over.
And even with the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote, it still didn't apply equally to everyone.
Especially women of color, who still face barriers for years after that.
And that's why people like Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, and Ida B. Wells are so important.
Exactly, because they weren't just talking about it, they were actively pushing for change in different ways.
And it really shows how progress happens over time, not all at the same time.
Yeah, like every step builds on the last one. Something else that stands out is how a lot of women get reduced to one moment.
Yeah, like Rosa Parks is always connected to the Montgomery bus boycott, but she was involved in civil rights way before that.
And that one moment is important, but it doesn't show the full picture of everything she did.
Same with a lot of other women. Their impact was built over years, not just one event.
And I think that's important because it shows consistency and dedication.
Not just reacting in one moment, but actually staying committed to something long term. When it comes to science, women have played a huge role even when they weren't being recognized.
Marie Curie is a big example, being the first woman to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different fields.
And then you have people like Katherine Johnson, whose calculations helped NASA's mission succeed.
And a lot of that work was happening behind closed doors without recognition at the time.
Which is actually crazy considering how important it was.
And even now, women are still contributing to major advancements in science and medicine.
So women in STEM isn't something that happened in the past, it's still ongoing.
Exactly. There are also a lot of everyday things people use that were created by women.
Yeah, like the dishwasher, windshield wipers, home security systems, and so much more.
And even an invention like Monopoly, which is one of the most popular board games, was originally created by women.
Wow, it's just interesting because these things are so normal now that people don't think about where they came from.
But they all started as ideas that solved real problems.
And it shows that impact doesn't always have to be something huge, but it can be everyday items too. Speaking of nobody knowing women created many everyday objects, they weren't getting the credit for what they deserved.
Yeah, like there were times where women couldn't even copyright their own ideas.
So many men took it and got recognized instead.
And that affects how history is told, because not everything we learn is fully accurate.
Which is why bringing attention to it now actually matters.
Yeah, because it corrects those gaps and gives credit where it's due. In business, women also created their own paths when opportunities weren't there.
Madam C.J. Walker is a perfect example. She built her own company and became the first female self-made millionaire.
And she didn't just build a business, she also created opportunities for other women to thrive in.
And now you see women leading major brands and companies across different industries.
So it did grow a lot over time, but remember, it started from people creating their own space.
Yeah, and that took a lot of confidence and risk. In leadership, there's also been a lot of progress.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg helped shape laws around gender equality.
And now Kamala Harris as the first female vice president, representation has reached new levels.
It shows that things are changing, even if it's still a work in progress.
And representation actually matters because it influences future generations.
Culture also plays a role in how women are viewed.
Yeah, like expectations, stereotypes, and even the media all shape those ideas.
Something like Barbie started as one idea but turned into a bigger topic over time.
And now people are more aware and questioning those expectations instead of just accepting them.
Which shows how culture evolves too.
Right now, there's still a lot of women making a major impact.
Like Malala advocating for education globally.
Greta Thunberg speaking out on climate issues.
And younger voices are being heard more than before.
That shows that things are continuing to grow and change every day.
Yeah. So instead of talking about more history, we also wanted some closer input.
Yep, so we asked teachers here who is one woman that shaped who they are today and why.
Because that gives a more personal perspective.
And it shows how influence isn't always famous people. It can be someone in your life.
My name is Bour, and I'm the art teacher at Sandy Creek. Okay, so I think the woman who has inspired me the most and shaped who I am today would be my mom. I always see her as being so strong even when times were difficult. And she went from a struggle to being a very successful woman. She was also a great human being. In our town in Puerto Rico, she was chosen as the Citizen of the Year. She's also military, so she's a former commander of a combat support hospital, which is a very hard position to get. And she was just always a go-getter. Nothing let her down. She's always able to be herself and just has succeeded all around in life.
Hi, this is Mrs. Bushong, and I teach sociology and psychology and world history this year. And with the question that was asked of me about which woman most affected me, immediately Clara Barton came into mind. Obviously, I'm not in the field of nursing, but when I was young as a child, that was who I wanted to be. I wanted to get into nursing. And later on, I found out that it was a lot messier than I had thought it was going to be. And so I changed my career. But originally, she made it possible for me to think that I could have a career as a woman beyond the house. And so I think she changed my thinking that women could do more than just be a housewife.
You can tell those answers actually mean something to them. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's get into something going on around Sandy Creek right now.
For sports, basketball season is wrapping up with the playoffs, and now we're really starting to shift into spring sports.
And coming up, there's a spring bingo night on March 20th, which is something people usually go to just to hang out and have a good time. So overall, between everything we talked about and what's happening around the school, there's a lot going on this month.
Definitely. That wraps up today's episode.
Today we talk about Women's History Month, why it exists, and highlighted women who made a real impact.
And also how important it is to actually recognize those contributions, not just this month, but all the time.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
I'm Daniela.
And I'm Aliyah.
And don't forget, once a patriot, always a patriot.